So I know you're dying to hear them. So here are the lyrics.
God knows I didn't the first time.
So, I was a surgical flying, wasn't
Yeah.
I?
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. Come on in, the water's fine. Uh, John, you're going to be offering up a song for the class today, and I'm going to go off and give it a listen, come back, and we're going to discuss it at length, I'm sure. But I don't know the song, and I don't know the artist. I'm going to need you to inform me of both.
If you insist. So the band is someone you probably have heard of, called the Feelies.
Yeah, this is another one on the list of I guess when you listen to indie rock long enough, you hear tale of like
Certain names,
certain
yeah.
artists that came before that were influential to either the artist you listen to or the artist that inspired the artist you're listening to, depending on how new or old the band is or the act is. So yes, I've heard the Feelies. I know that there's this sort of I don't know if mystique is the right word, but there's this sort of aura, like that they were sort of laid the groundwork for what would be modern indie rock. I haven't listened to any of them, much to my shame, but one of the joys of doing this channel is having someone like you, who's a generation before mine, fill in some of those gaps that came before me and inspired some of the songs that would come after me. So this is going to be a good opportunity to do just that. What's the track
The track is called On the Roof.
on the roof? All right. Well, let me head up there and give this thing a listen. Come back and let you know what I think. This is interesting. It starts off with this like jaunty little beat, and it's got this like I don't know wholesome heartland kind of folksy sound to it, which is a sound that's very familiar to me. So there's this weird reaction where I'm like, this sounds familiar, but I know I haven't heard it. Which is, that's always a pleasant uh, kind of feeling you get when you listen to new music, that there's still somehow this connection point to you that you feel like you've heard something like this before, and I know I have. I just know I haven't heard this before. Um, yeah, so lovely, like all these elements that are familiar, that I am familiar with, the sort of lush guitar sound and these keys. It's almost like kind of like a musical hug from an old friend, and that's comforting when you're listening to something new. You immediately draw again that connection point. I haven't heard much of the vocals on this, but what I am hearing, which isn't much because it's kind of low in the mix, and there's kind of like this I don't know, sort of subdued delivery, and in a weird way, and I don't know if it's because we've done a lot of their music lately, so it's all in my mind, or you know call me crazy, but the delivery reminds me a lot of this early Michael Stipe stuff that we've endeavored to listen to, and a little bit that I was familiar with before I came in, where it's it's not forward in the mix, and it's not very pronounced, and the emphasis perhaps isn't on the vocal track as much. It doesn't sound like Michael Stipe, but it sounds like his delivery. So I don't know the chicken and the egg situation here, which came first, REM or the Feelies, but um there is this odd similarity, and it's probably just because we've recently done it and discussed this that my brain is doing this. I may be completely wrong, but I don't know. That's just a correlation I'm making. Let's proceed. Beautiful. I the mix of that guitar, that lead guitar bit is it's so tasteful. Like oftentimes when the lead is injected into a song, it kind of a lot of times it sucks up the oxygen in the song, and it elbows its way in and makes itself known. And this is so fluid, um, and it meshes so well with the rest of the music that you can appreciate all of it and not just the lead guitar part, which sometimes that works when you do that, but other times it's to the detriment of the rest of the song. And this is superbly done, superbly mixed in the track, and I want to take that back because I enjoyed it so much. Mm. Another track that I wished would have gone on a little bit longer, and again, only because I was enjoying it that much. It has this odd feeling of comfort or like hominess to it. And that's really an interesting feeling you get when you're listening to something for the first time. And for me, that makes the song a winner. It sounded so familiar to me. Um, and it was really, really enjoyable. I don't know much at all about these guys, save for their existence. It's really all I was working with going into this, but really enjoyed this kind of like indie folk kind of sound. That is a sound that we have discussed at length. That is one that I sort of gravitate toward. And this is another shining example of that. Great tune, just under 3 minutes. Wish it was just under four, but I'll live with what I get, and that is a great song. Mm. All right. let's get back to John because I didn't catch shit in the way of lyrics when it came to this song. So it'll be interesting to hear about that, maybe what it's about. But musically, very rich, warm, and comforting uh, to these 40-year-old ears, anyway. Let's see what Uncle John has to say about this one. All right, I'm back down on the main level. So
What do
we
you think?
have we have another instance where, god damn, I wish this song was longer. Um, I did enjoy it, but it did come under that 3 minute marker, and honestly, I think if it had come just under the 4 minute marker around there, it would have been perfect. But I don't want to take anything away from the song. It was really great. I had a lot of fun listening to this. It was um it starts off this jaunty rhythm, kind of moving along, and it gives me this sort of, I don't know, middle American kind of like heartland sound. There's this like wholesome, folksy, familiar quality to it. The acoustic and guitar and the keys are almost like a musical hug from an old friend, even though I've never listened to this stuff before in my life. I know I've never listened to this song, yet it is riddled with all of this familiarity for some reason. So I
Yeah,
really,
can I
really go ahead.
just to say, that little first little opening bit, it's kind of like a musical cross between Little House on the Prairie and some sort of wagon trail, sort of,
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon family wholesome drama, and this would be the theme tune.
Yes.
It's like that. That's what it
Yes.
puts it in my mind every time.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was. And then the vocalist joins the track, and this is odd because he's got a very like understated delivery, a little bit lost in the mix thing, and by a little bit, I'm kind of being generous there. It
Odd.
was, I caught
Yes.
zero of his words, um, and because of that, and just that, I don't know why, but I was, and it's probably because you've been plying me with so much of it over the last couple months. But like, it just reminded me of Michael Stipe's early approach to his vocal delivery. And so while it didn't sound like his voice, it sounded like his approach to singing, especially in those early years. So yeah, I don't know. I could be totally wrong here, but I saw a weird correlation there. So it was around the 40-second marker. There is some like lovely use of the tambourine that sort of is pronounced in the percussion work. And that sort of, I think, maintains pretty much throughout. And the keys take a more pronounced role in the song as well, or at least my ears are hearing them with more clarity for some reason. They carry the melody for a bit before giving way to this excellently mixed lead guitar. And I mean, God, so it was so pretty. I had to take it back because,
Yeah.
like, so many times the lead guitar comes elbowing its way into the song, sucks up all the oxygen out of the room. And yeah, even when if it's an amazing lead, it's still sometimes to the detriment of the rest of the song or the other musicians therein. And this was like the most perfectly woven lead tapestry over background music or the other musicians that I've heard in any song. It was so clear. So I really, really loved that and was actually kind of taken aback by how deftly it was handled in production, in the way it was played, everything. Just a beautiful balancing act throughout that whole lead, and I really, really enjoyed it. And again, I had to take that thing back just to hear it again. Um, the singer returns to the fray, and I have to admit that because of his delivery, I am 100% certain I'm catching zero in the way of lyrics or meaning or anything. So if they're important, I'm going to need you to step up to the plate when it gets to your bit here. um,
They're not.
okay, fine, fair. I'm glad then that I didn't waste my time trying to sift through all the music to find his voice, because as well balanced as that lead guitar was, his vocals were buried down below. The musical motif that begins around the 207 mark is fun and bouncy, and the key chords really shine through this bit. And it's capped off with just a pinch of guitar noodling before we come to a safe landing with this song, and it wraps up. there was something calming and, as I mentioned earlier, something comforting to this track. And though I know I've never heard it before, it sounded like something that I like. It had this like mother's milk quality to it. And I think
Yeah,
you know at this point um, that I am like I love folksy indie rock shit, and this had that in spades. And I think I like it all that much more knowing that it was an early incarnation of this kind of sound, probably on the indie scene. So all the more reason for me to like this and be intrigued by the band and to want to hear more, having put off listening to them after knowing about them for as long as I have. So great choice. I enjoyed it, man.
cool, cool, cool. Okay, I'll get into this, and you'll see why I've chose this and whatever. So, Feelies, American post-punk band, and jangle rock and other things. They're from Halidon, New Jersey. They formed in 1976 and disbanded in 92, having released 4 albums. They reunited in 2008 and released new albums in 2011 and 2017. The band's name is taken from a fictional entertainment device described in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Not the first or last time that book will be referenced in terms of music and
Yeah,
bands.
no kidding, right? I think we both brought artists to
Yeah.
the table and reverenced them.
So just a bit about them. Although not commercially successful at all, Feelies had a massive influence on the development of particularly American indie rock. And their first album, Crazy Rhythms, 1980, is now seen as a landmark album. It was cited by, amongst many, many others, but in particular, REM has really influenced in their early sound. And
Okay.
this is said record. And as a I will just go a little bit about it because it really is an important record. The song you listen to is not from this album, but yeah, there's some amazing stuff in it. The Boy Perpetual, the tracks, but um, it's really really cool album, and their approach, and especially with percussion and other stuff, they wanted to slightly get away from this punk sound and the sort of the beginnings of new wave in America and stuff like that came through with them. So, in retrospective in reviews, The Guardian said that Crazy Rhythms was one of those albums during whose course you hear the most exciting sound in music, things changing. Rolling Stones branded it a landmark of jangly guitar-driven avant pop, and its shimmering sound can still be heard in bands like REM. And Pop Matters wrote that the album stands as a wildly inventive and influential record that stands shoulder to shoulder with some of the best music of the American post-punk era. Crazy Rhythms was ranked 49 in Rolling Stone's list of 100 best albums of the 80s and number 69 on Pitchfork list. Um, After Crazy Rhythms, a couple of the members left the band to join other bands, and the remaining members fell into this quite sustained period of collaborations, offshoots, and side projects. There was even a band that called themselves the Willies, which had members of the Feelies in, and they did stuff as well. After 6 years, they reformed properly with new members and released their second album, The Good Earth, which is out there. Um, and what they usually did was they produced themselves, but in this case, they had a co-producer, one Peter Buck.
Oh, interesting.
So he's
So
working
the
with a vocalist who you can't bloody hear what he's singing. So obviously that didn't bother him either.
yeah, yeah, he's like, no, that sounds right. That's what I'm used to. Um,
Yeah, that's normal. Um,
so it's interesting because these guys influenced REM, but then they brought a member of REM to help them on this sort of new chapter in
yeah,
their musical career. That's really fucking cool, man.
it is, and this music that you're hearing is obviously different to the first album. Really different. But I'll get into that. So, band members for this album: Glenn Mercer, lead and rhythm guitars, vocals, keyboards; Bill Million, rhythm and lead guitars, backing vocals; Dave Weckerman, percussion; Brenda Salter, bass guitar, backing vocals, violin, and Stan Dominski, drums and percussion. So yeah, as I said, this is a distinct change in sound for the
Mm.
band, and their influences that they had early on from the Beatles, Velvet Underground, and Lou Reed are really clearly on display in this album. So of this album, All Music Wrote, the tempos are, this is a really nice little description actually. The tempos are relaxed, the percussion understated, the instrumentation largely acoustic. It's no less hypnotic than Crazy Rhythms, but it has a different notion of infinity. Wheat fields, Sunday drives, childhood bedtimes to the sound of adults murmuring from the living room. The cover image, the band, slightly sepia tone and standing in tall grass, is a rural reconsideration of Crazy Rhythms, a stepping back. Mercer's vocals are a stream of consciousness hum under the shimmer of guitars. Being a guitar player, he said, I don't have much of a need to express myself as a singer. A claim that makes you think the guitar solos are going to be fireworks, and they aren't. Fireworks are not what the Feelies were about. So yeah, I absolutely adore this album for what it is, which is a complete album and a
Yeah.
work which you can and should listen to if possible in its entirety. So I picked this record up from a record shop, completely blind and more probably deaf to the album. Never heard it before. Got it back, put it on, and was absolutely blown away, or wafted away actually, because it's so relaxed.
Yeah.
Um, so the total feel of this album. Um, this track is the opener of the album, and I have to say, from that gentle but gorgeous guitar solo halfway through the track, I knew I was going to love this whole album, and I did. And you mentioned the length of the songs, and there are some of them quite short, but the first three tracks almost blend into each other in such a way that it's
Okay.
just one continuous long sigh as you sit in your hammock drinking whatever.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful.
The 3 minutes of this song, coupled with whatever the lengths are of the other two, I'm
Yeah,
sure is just like watching spores of a dandelion
exactly.
cascade through the air, just this
Yeah.
gentle, oh man, yeah, because it gives you, it's weird how it gives you that feeling just right out of the gate. It did for me for this song, so I can only imagine what those other two and the rest of this album are like.
The fourth track is the quite epic slipping into something, which Greg actually reacted to on Into the Music, and it's a
Okay.
great. And it goes into a bit more, it's not fervent, but a bit more sort of muscular guitarishness. And he really, really does a fantastic Lou Reed impression, both musically and vocally.
I'll have to go
Um,
back and
he,
check that out.
he's very obsessed with Lou Reed and Velvet Underground. I mean,
Okay.
really. So the song, another song on the album, "Let's Go," was featured in Jonathan Demme's film, "The Truth About Charlie," um, and this is part of a long-standing relationship between the director and the band. They appeared, I think, as the Willies in his film "Something Wild" as like a house band, and they did a cover of Bowie's "Fame" and a couple of other songs as well. And he has directed some of their music videos as well. So there's this nice relationship between the two. So I know you're dying to hear them. So here are the lyrics.
God knows I didn't the first time.
So, I was a Santa coming flying.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Oh, revelation.
I know I said you can't even fly. On your way. I hope you'll be okay. Stop for a while. Talk about it for a while. And then there's a guitar solo. From now on, sooner or later, sing a new song. Call me when you're better. Stop for a while. Talk about it for a while. And then it goes in there, ding, 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 in a while, in a while, for a while, for a while. It's just, chill it out. It's just not really anything to the
It's
lyrics.
trying so hard to grasp all of them and the meaning behind them, and we get to the end and you go,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is there anything left on that one? Pass it across. Okay.
Why,
There's
whatever
always
do you
someone who's
mean?
There's always someone who smokes the roach. But anyway, so after this wonderful, wonderful album, which I cannot emphasize how much I love it, and probably each time I listen to it, I love it just a touch more. Because
Mm,
as you say, it's that instinctive familiarity which you don't even realize you had with this.
yeah.
It does the main line straight into something that sort of seems to have always been there in you. I absolutely adore this album. They produced two further really good albums. They signed to A&M Records, so it was kind of first major record. So Only Life in 1988 and Time for a Witness in 1991, both really highly praised by the critics. And there's a really great song from those albums, which I might give you. It's a live performance on Letterman. It's really
Oh,
good.
nice.
It's a bit more jangly upbeat as well. It's really
Yeah.
cool. Um, Another hiatus followed until they started performing again live in together in 2008. And sure enough, after 3 more years, which is basically a 20-year gap, they released Here Before in 2011. The New Yorker wrote, "The band remains one of the nation's most beloved alternative rock bands," which is quite nice for someone like them to write. Their fifth studio album, In Between, was released in 2017, and they finally publicly acknowledged their Lou Reed obsession by releasing a cover album of Velvet Underground songs last year called Some Kind of Love, the performing of Velvet Underground songs. And it's a live performance, basically, or yeah, um, from in Jersey City in 2018. And it's really cool. I
Nice.
mean,
They probably that
it's
was probably such a labor of love.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got it. It's decent, but it's pretty much unnecessary. But
Yeah.
it's nice.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
if it made them feel better because I bought it, then fair enough.
They just had to get
I'm
it out of their system.
I'm happy to do that for them because they brought me enough joy. So yeah, that's the Feelies. It's really cool, understated, strumly goodness,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And yeah, the kind of the record cover, you can see it, but this sort of sepia tone, it kind of that's what the album feels like. That
Yes.
first,
Yeah, it does.
you know. Cool. I shall wrap things up. Thanks for listening, Sandy.
Thank you.
Folks out there, tell us what you think. I'm sure loads of people are familiar with the first album, Crazy Rhythms. And I might dig something. To be honest with you, it's not my favorite album of theirs at all. I recognize it, how important it is, but this one and the next two, I really, really like a lot more. There you go.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's funny because you were saying at the beginning of your talking about the band, you had mentioned jangle rock and all this, and I'm thinking I didn't hear any of that, and
no,
then
not in
you
this album.
you shed some light on why I didn't. But yeah, it'd be interesting to hear at some point them tap into that sound. Now that I've heard this other sort of more,
Yeah,
I don't know, organic sort of heartlandy kind of sound that they have
yeah,
going on.
yeah. It was just, can you imagine my surprise being familiar with Crazy Rhythms and just putting this on? It's all like acoustic strumming. It's like, what the
Yeah,
hell?
like what the.
Beautiful. But there you go. So yeah, folks, drop some comments. We'd love to hear from you. Hit the like button if you like this, obviously. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do. It makes sense. Really appreciate everyone who does to help support the channel with all good things like numbers and algorithms and shit like that. That being said, thanks again so much for watching. And we'll see all of you on the next episode of The Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.